Hi, this is Ken Martin, and thank you for joining us on this edition of the Chair's Corner. We are less than 30 days away from one of the most important elections of our lifetime. One of the closest races in Minnesota this year is the ballot measure that will change our state's constitution to require voters to show a photo ID. In fact, a poll released just yesterday showed support for the voter restriction amendment is now down to its lowest ever. After seeing these huge swings in the polls and talking with folks across the state, we know more than ever that we can defeat this voter restriction amendment. And today I am honored to be joined by Luchelle Stevens, who is here to talk about what the Our Vote, Our Future campaign is doing to defeat the amendment and what you can do as a voter to talk with your friends, family, and neighbors about the importance of voting no on November 6th. Thank you so much for joining me, Luchelle.
Thanks for having me here, Ken.
Absolutely. First of all, can you talk about what this amendment means for Minnesotans and how many Minnesotans would be affected by this voter restriction amendment and why they should vote no this year?
Sure. So the question itself that's going to be on the ballot seems very simple in terms of, should you show a photo ID when you vote? It seems a simple enough question. But when you look behind the flip side of that photo ID, there's a lot of complications. And what it could mean to Minnesotans is a number of things. It can be very costly for Minnesotans in costing of implementing this very flawed amendment. For a lot of Minnesotans, particularly our military servicemen and women safeguarding our freedoms overseas, they will see complications in voting absentee. The same with our seniors in nursing homes and our veterans in nursing homes, that this will introduce new barriers to their voting rights.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to note that while the proponents of this would have people believe that this is just about a photo ID, as you just mentioned, this is really a complete overhaul of our election system in this state, which, by the way, happens to be one of the models for elections not only in this country but around the world. And so what effect would this amendment have on local communities from your perspective? Who will be paying the price to carry out this law and administer the new rules of this amendment if it passes this November?
Yeah. So absolutely. Local election officials have said projected costs of anywhere up to $50 million just to implement the system. And that's not even just ongoing things. And we all know that when unfunded mandates get imposed on local governments, more often than not, it's the local taxpayer that will have to bear the cost of it. And that this will mean choosing between priorities of what local governments have to pay for. And again, local elected officials and local election officials that are responsible for administering elections have come out throughout the state of Minnesota to talk about what this means to their communities and how costly it will be and how this will put a strap on the things that they prioritize in their communities.
And we're already seeing soaring property tax increases throughout the state of Minnesota, double-digit increases this year, thanks to Republicans in the legislature who repealed the market value homestead credit. And as you mentioned, this unfunded mandate would just add to that. I heard from some local elected officials up in northern Minnesota that their annual elections budget is about $20,000, but if this amendment passes, they would have to find an additional $100,000 to fund elections in their county, which is a huge increase, as you know. So local elected officials are going to have to grapple with this in ways that unfortunately would add to the rising property taxes, as you mentioned. And what is the campaign? You've been on the ground here for a while now. What is the campaign doing to talk to voters about this issue, and how can people step up to help out with the Our Vote, Our Future campaign?
So we've been on the doors and on the phones almost every single day. And so if folks want to help out, they should absolutely go to ourvoteourfuture.org and find ways to volunteer there.
Excellent. And this is a cherished right in our country, that it's obscene to me in this day and age, in 2012, that we would be trying to put barriers and obstacles in front of people to exercise that right. And, I hope all people watching this, regardless of whether or not they're DFLers or Republicans or independents, would realize that the last thing we should be doing right now is making it harder for people to vote in this country.
Mm-hmm. Amendments to constitutions are about expanding rights to citizens. And that no matter what, we should always, always strive to have an on-ramp for people to have a voice in democracy.
Yes.
And that we want to make sure that we protect that. We want to make sure that we preserve that, because there are many, many men and women who have some given their lives for us to have this right to vote.
And you're a veteran, and you know, because you stood up and fought for our freedoms. And one of those cherished freedoms is our right to vote. That's what you fought for. That's what many men and women in our country are currently fighting for. And that's what many men and women have shed blood for over many years. And I think about the one thing that I say to people on this is I don't want to wake up on November 7th trying to explain to my 2 children that we have now basically said that those sacrifices that all of you veterans, all of you people who marched in the civil rights movement, all of you women who marched for the right to vote have been in vain, that we're now starting to put obstacles in the way of people to exercise that right and freedom. So I thank you so much for your service. I thank you for your service to this campaign and leading this campaign towards defeating this amendment this fall. We couldn't do it without you. We couldn't do it with our Vote Our Future. And I'd ask everyone who's watching this to please get involved in the campaign. We have 27 days left, and these next 27 days are going to be critical to the direction our state heads in. We have to beat back this constitutional amendment. I ask you to join the campaign, to roll up your sleeves and do everything you can to make sure that we defeat voter ID, defeat the voter restriction amendment this fall. I want to thank you again, Luchelle, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.